Only the I am has creative power. Only the I am has intention, because from your state of being, everything is naturally attracted and manifested from that state. You don't need to do anything for it. You don't need to work for it. Whatever you are in alignment with, in resonance with, must be drawn to you continually. All actions that are executed without an intention will be weaponized by the ego. Because when you act unconsciously, operating from the default mode network, then you're just giving the ego power. We must become aware of the I am power, the God power, flowing through us and all around us by using it. When you're consciously creating every single action, you are operating from God mode. So let's begin by saying that when you are in perfect alignment with the law of one, then you have total free will to create however you see fit within the parameters of the law of one, which is do no harm. Ra says the first primal distortion of the law of one is love. Love is do no harm. So there's infinite freedom in oneness. There is freedom in alignment with the law. And we only struggle to create our reality because of our many deviations and violations of the law of one, which drain our creative power and bind us to the ego, to the lower three chakras. So we use requalifying to put every thought and action back into alignment with the law of one. That's the primary purpose of why we practice requalification. So let's look at, we've talked about requalifying thoughts plenty up till now. Let's look at the definition of requalifying actions. To requalify an action is to imbue your action with intention. To requalify an action is to imbue that action with an intention, a conscious intention. Because when your actions are unconscious, they are without intention, yes? And so whatever actions are without intention automatically feed the ego. And they become what we call patterns, right? Unconscious patterns. So the purpose of requalifying actions is to establish total and complete alignment with the law of one in our actions. And so the important part here is that we, the person, the ego, cannot control anything. We talk about this ad nauseum. The third belief of ego is I am in control. And in fact, the ego is not in control. From the ego position, from the personal self position, we can only intend what we desire and let the universe respond to that intention and lead us and guide us where it wills. And that's what we call cooperation. We've used the mantra here in Master Your Mind, I'm not in control, I am being lived, to requalify the third belief. Now, again, all affirmations are given to the ego. The true self doesn't need to be reminded that it's not in control. Yes, only the ego needs to be reminded that. So, as a concession to our identification with the ego, the body, the person, we give you these mantras to repeat, these affirmations, to get your mind back into alignment with the truth of who you are. So when you notice the belief in control, you're trying to control life, you're resisting life. When you notice that third belief in activity, you can requalify it by pausing and saying, wait a minute, I'm not in control. I am being lived. But another way we can use that mantra would be to say, I'm not in control. I am in cooperation. The personal self can only be in cooperation with the whole. We, the personal self, can't control anything, right? But we, the universal self, are in full control of our personal reality. We, the I am, the universal ego, as we call it, the universal self, I am, are in full control of our reality. And so whatever we intend from the I am position must be made manifest. And so our only trouble is getting into the position of the I am, coming from the I am, thinking, feeling, acting, behaving, intending from the I am, the universal self. That's what requalification of actions is really for. And so unless we are out of alignment with the law of one, we have full freedom to create our reality. So the question is, how do we get out of alignment? How does that happen? Well, of course, it's through our deviant thinking, behaving, acting. When we act out or think through this state of separation, when we believe ourselves to be separate from life, our thinking, feeling, behaving will be according to that belief. We will act from the position of the separate self, from lack, from fear, from inadequacy, etc. And so, most importantly, we get out of alignment with the law of one when we leave our actions devoid of intention. Because only the I am has creative power. Only the I am has intention, right? The power of intention and attention. The I am is the aware, conscious principle, the first person in the present tense. So when you create an intention, you automatically put yourself into the I am state. When you say, I know what I'm doing and I am doing this for this reason, you are the I am in that moment. Because the ego is not a conscious, sentient being that can come up with its own intentions. The ego is a mental activity only, right? It is a mental pattern. It is a belief in separation. It's not an autonomous being that can have its own will. The ego has no free will, right? It's purely conditioning, purely a program. So when you imbue your actions with an intention, you are coming from the I am state, and therefore you can create your reality. And the most important thing by far to create, and those of you who went to the retreat know this, is your state of being. I said this at the retreat. The title of Become the Creator may sound like a kind of law of attraction retreat or event, right? On the surface. But the way that we teach manifestation here is very different than your typical law of attraction of how to manifest a specific person, how to get your ex back, how to manifest a better car, a better house, external things, outer things, right? That's usually why people use the law of attraction. But the law of attraction, or the law of resonance, or however you like to see it, is best put to use to create and manifest our chosen state of being. Because from your state of being, everything is naturally attracted and manifested from that state. You don't need to do anything for it. You don't need to work for it. It is a byproduct of your state of being. Whatever you are in alignment with, in resonance with, must be drawn to you continually. So we're much better off putting our attention and energy and intention into manifesting our state of being. And we do that through the conscious use of the I am, through putting intention behind our actions. Because when you act unconsciously, you're just going through the motions, right? Operating from the default mode network, then you're just giving the ego power. So we can say this: all actions that are executed without an intention will be weaponized by the ego. And what are they going to be weaponized for? To create guilt or pride. Every action you commit that's from a pattern, that's just going through the motions unconsciously, all those actions will be used for only one of two purposes: guilt or pride. Those are the only two things ego's interested in. Attraction or aversion, right? That's all the ego's got. So the ego's only intention is guilt and pride, taking and keeping, me, me, me. And so you may have noticed that every single pattern and program that runs in the mind is inherently self-centered in nature. No one develops a pattern of service to others that they have to then break in order to become self-centered, right? That's the opposite of spiritual growth. Nobody has to do that. Man, I really want to be selfish, but I'm just so in the mode of serving others. How do I break this pattern? That's not the innate state of the ego, the personal self. It's just the reverse, isn't it? You have to break the pattern of selfishness to develop and form the habit of service to others. That's the way that the Creator has designed this third density realm to promote spiritual growth. You got to break the unconscious patterns to entrain the conscious patterns that you truly desire. So when you act unconsciously, you become the part attempting to take from the whole, right? When you act with the ego, the separate self, you are acting in opposition to the law of one. And therefore, every action will create negative karma. Guilt and pride, guilt and pride. And so the solution can only be conscious, intentional action. Because when you take an action with a mindful and conscious intention, then again, you are the creator of your reality in that moment. You give your actions over to God when you imbue them with an intention. But because the ego's intention is always to fill any void you leave open, all actions without intention create an opening for the ego. And I hope you heard me on that one. Write that one down if you're taking notes. All actions without intention will give an opening for the ego, will create an opening for the ego. So let's look at this analogy. You guys know I love analogies. Acting without intention is like leaving your doors unlocked at night. Imagine if you had this bad habit of leaving your house unlocked every night, and night after night, the same thief breaks in and steals all your belongings. And in this analogy, your belongings would represent your love, your peace, your joy, your happiness. And so you're getting your house broken into every single night. A thief comes in while you're asleep, takes all your goodies. You wake up feeling depressed, feeling lack, feeling frustrated, angry. And every time evening comes, you start to feel the sense of fear and anxiety creeping in because you know the thief's coming back. And so you start to get nervous, right? You don't want that thief to take any more of your joy, but you don't know how to stop the thief. He just keeps coming in. Oh, what do I do? So you call your guru for advice. You say, please, guru, please come over to my house and stand guard with me all night and protect me. Please, master, please help me. This thief, he breaks in every single night. He's relentless. He steals my joy while I'm asleep. Perhaps you can vanquish him for me. And the guru says, well, if you want this thief to stop entering your house every night and stealing your joy, then stop leaving your doors unlocked. What? Hello? Are you there? Guru? Hello? He hung up on me. Maybe he gave me the only advice I need. Stop leaving your doors unlocked, dummy. So the question is, what does it mean to leave your doors unlocked? And it's this. Every action you take is an open door for either the ego or for God. If that's true, action without intention is an unlocked door for the ego. Action with intention is a locked door for the ego. Can you see that? When you place an intention behind every action, the ego is locked outside. And don't be fooled by this. The ego will definitely stand outside your door and throw rocks at your window. Hey, please, hey, I'm out here. You left me outside. Please let me in. Won't you let me in? It's so cold out here. I just want to come in for a warm cup of tea, that's all. Please, I'm your old buddy, your old pal. You wouldn't leave me outside in the cold like this, would you? Come on, just let me in. I promise I'm not going to cause any trouble this time. I'll just sit quietly in the corner and sip my tea. Oh, please, won't you let me in? It's so cold outside. The ego will knock at the door, trying to hijack your actions, bring you back into unconsciousness again. The ego wants to run the show. So you got to lock him outside, or he's going to keep on barging in every night and steal your joy. So leave no action without intention is the point here. When you make sure that every action you take is imbued with a powerful intention, then you are locking your doors. You're giving the ego no entry point into your mind, because everywhere the ego prowls, looking for an opening, it will take. But when it finds your intention blocking the entryway, it can't go in because you're the creator. You're the true power, not the ego. So it's got to fool you into taking your intention down, into behaving unconsciously again, going back into unconscious living, mindless living, default mode network, patterns, etc., conditioning. That's the mode it wants you in so it can run you. But when you have an intention in front of every action, no matter what the action is, and we'll get to that in a second, you're locking the ego out, you're blocking the entryway. And so the ego finds nowhere that it can assert its own intentions for patterns. When you're consciously creating every single action, you are operating from God mode, from the I am state. You're never operating from ego's programs when you're being intentional. When you put a why behind your actions, then there's nowhere for the voice of victim consciousness to enter. There's nowhere for the voice of guilt or pride to enter. Because victim and creator are two totally opposite energies that cancel each other out. The presence of one is the absence of the other, right? So therefore, when all actions are imbued with creator consciousness, there's no room for victim consciousness, and the ego is locked out. So I actually have a Saint Germain quote for you today from the I Am Discourses, where Saint Germain talks about this very point. He says, "There is nothing that can give you permanent success in the outer activity except the conscious use of the I am presence. Stand adamant against the thing that would sway you off. Take the stand often. I know what I am doing and I am doing it. You may sometimes have to say very strong things in order to shut off interference, but do not be susceptible to it. Decide what you want to do and then say, I am the presence doing it. The use of the I am prevents the development of anything out of balance. That's the law of one we talked about. It keeps you in balance and alignment. I am is the all balance because it is the power and governing intelligence of all perfection. Its very activity compels the balance. You cannot use the words I am with anything and not couple with it the power to do the thing." Those are pretty strong words, huh? Maybe we should take that literally and seriously. Maybe we should start to use the I am constantly. Maybe we should employ it as often as possible. And again, to use the I am doesn't necessarily mean you have to say mentally, I am doing this thing. Just putting an intention behind what you want to do, like, this is the reason I'm choosing to do this act right now. That is using the I am, because you are it. You don't even have to say it, you are the I am. So when you're conscious, awake, aware, and intending, you're the I am. That's it. You're already the I am. You just slip back into unconscious patterns of believing you're something else, the egoic self, and you act from that position, unconsciously and mindlessly. So we're just practicing our conscious application of the I am power. We must become aware of the I am power, the God power, flowing through us and all around us by using it. We talk about this from the A Course in Miracles perspective, right? What you give is what you increase, and only what you don't give can ever be lacking. So if you're not giving your I am presence, your I am power to every action, then it's not increasing and you're not going to experience it. And if the I am is not there, the victim will be there, right? The ego will be there to fill that void. Because as we said, every action you leave without an intention, which is to say, every action you perform without the I am presence, is a void you leave open for the ego to come in. It's an open door, right? So when we get into the habit and the practice, and this is a practice of using our I am power mindfully and consciously, then we have to start applying it very unilaterally across our life, even in mundane things. I am drinking this water to quench my thirst. Like, I don't even have to say those words. I just have to know, there is thirst. I will drink the water to quench the thirst, to nourish the body. Just a quick intention. In a nanosecond, I can have an intention. The moment I become conscious, I apply an intention. It's not like I'm advocating you go through your day speaking I am mantras about every single thing you do. Although if you want to do that, have at it. Nothing wrong with it. It's just that the I am is before words, right? It's subtler than words and language. So you don't need to be saying all the time, I am doing this, I am doing that. But make no mistake, when there is a strong program at work, when there's a strong pattern at work, and you're trying to break that thing, then it is usually the right idea to say, I am doing this for this reason, I am the power doing it. Because you're trying to bring as much amplitude to that intention as you can. As Saint Germain said, you may sometimes have to say very strong things to break off the interference, to interrupt the pattern, right? So when you become aware that there is only one power acting, there's only one power in the universe. In fact, the final chapter of the book that I'm writing is called One Power. There's only one power acting, and when we realize that, we start to see that, oh, it's the power by which I eat. It's the power by which I digest my food, breathe, walk, think, speak, imagine. Every other activity, it is always the God power. Am I using it consciously or unconsciously is the only question. And so the final point for today's lesson on this topic of requalifying our actions with intention is to begin using everything for awakening. There's a strong intention, right, to put behind your actions. What if you imbued every action with an intention for that action to bring greater awakening? Because you're the creator, so you can definitely do that if you want to. So what do I mean? I mean, whether or not you feel that what you're doing is in or out of alignment doesn't ultimately matter. What matters much more is if you're doing it with intention. Because again, we're requalifying our actions, our patterns, our habits, our bad behaviors, right? When you bring intention to a pattern and you say, this is what I choose to do right now, and I'm doing it for this reason. You've brought the why into the action, right? You have a reason, an intention for why you're doing it, and so you activate the I am presence. And this is how we truly become the creator. We must get into the habit of using everything for our highest good, using everything for awakening. Because as A Course in Miracles says, every decision is but a choice between truth and illusion. So if you act with ego, which is to say unconsciously, unintentionally, then you choose illusion, don't you? On the other hand, when you act mindfully, with intention, you act with God. You choose truth instead of illusion. So get into the habit of putting a loving intention behind everything you do. And let's use an extreme example, because those usually paint the broadest picture for us. Let's say you're a cigarette addict, the classic example of addiction. Even if you're a cigarette addict and you've qualified a powerful habit of smoking a pack of cigarettes every day, you are not without hope, my friend. You're still the creator, still the I am, all the same. And so you can start to requalify that pattern by putting an intention behind every cigarette you smoke. So instead of just going through the motion, just blazing through cigarettes all day to feed some kind of addiction and craving, you stop, you slow down and say, all right, time to requalify. I am smoking this cigarette to find out if this is a habit I really want to keep. That's the intention. Cigarette, please show me if this habit is serving me or not. Thank you. And then just watch how your relationship with that cigarette starts to change a little bit. How about a different intention? Let's see. Pull out a cigarette. All right, let's set an intention. I am smoking this cigarette today to pay attention to how it feels in my physical body. I want to become more aware of how this cigarette affects my physical health. That's my intention. You can qualify any way you want to phrase the intention, just put an intention into it. Because when you smoke unconsciously out of habit and craving, then the spiritual ego will weaponize all of these concepts, these spiritual concepts against you to say, look at you, you addict. You know this is bad for you, and yet here you are still doing it. You're no saint. You're not worthy of enlightenment. Look at you. You can't even kick a habit of smoking. How will you ever be free of suffering if you can't even kick a habit of smoking? See, the ego's just, you left the door open. Action without intention. So how do we shut the door on the ego voice from saying that? The key is, it's not enough to just conceptually know that something's bad for you. It's not enough to just conceptually know that a habit of, unconscious dating and hooking up or whatever, or pornography or food addiction or cigarettes, it's not enough to just know it's bad for you. That's somebody else's truth, right? You've got to find out for yourself. You've got to determine with your own personal experience that something's not good for you. That's the only way you truly requalify it and break the pattern. It's the only way the soul truly learns. This is why you can warn kids all you want about don't do drugs, don't do this, don't do that, and almost always they're going to do it. Except for those rare advanced souls that incarnate as wanderers, and maybe they've already alleviated that karma, and so they don't need to go party and stuff. Most kids, they got to go taste a little bit of it. They got to go get some of the karma and experience some of the karmic consequences to go, oh yeah, I actually genuinely don't want to do that. I spoke on this a few weeks ago, right? That this is what religion specifically robbed me of as a young developing adolescent, is they tried to bar me from doing anything. You're not allowed to do drugs, you're not allowed to have sex, you're not allowed to think about sex, you're not allowed to think about drugs, you can't do anything we say is wrong, or you're going to be in big trouble. So simply out of fear, I avoided all the cravings my ego had that I needed to go experience and had to wait until my 20s to experience to burn through that karma. So you can burn through your karma a whole lot quicker when you put an intention behind the action. So maybe you smoke a cigarette with a devotional attitude, with a devotional intention. Why not? You're the creator. You can do whatever you want. So let's say you find yourself in this exact predicament, addicted to cigarettes, blazing through a pack a day. So you say, time to requalify this habit. You pull out a cigarette and you say, someday I will not want to smoke this anymore. But right now, there's a strong urge to smoke. And so I give this urge up to God. I will use it as an act of worship. Every cigarette I smoke today is for you, my Lord. I'm smoking this cigarette to connect deeper with God and for no other reason. I charge this cigarette with the energy of love. I'm smoking love today. And just watch how your attitude and craving begins to alter dramatically when you consistently imbue that intention into each cigarette. I give this urge to smoke up to you, Lord. You take it. This is my offering to you, God. Only you can requalify this for me. So this same strategy, again, will work for anything. A thought pattern, a physical pattern, any addiction, literally anything. When you put a conscious intention behind an unconscious action, you quickly begin to see and feel how out of alignment it is, and that it doesn't serve your highest good. And so the interest naturally begins to wane. But here's the kicker. This method only works if you do it with everything. If you're practicing it with everything, not just the one or two things that you want to requalify. Because it's not enough to just give God 5% of your actions and then give the ego 95%, right? You must give more to God than you're giving to the ego. So if you're only practicing requalifying with your addiction to cigarettes, and then you're acting unconsciously through the rest of your day, you'll notice that the I am power and inertia is not there. You haven't developed it yet. You don't really believe it yet, right? It's not alive in you yet, because if it was, you'd be doing it all the time. So again, start practicing it with everything. Just speak your intention before everything you do. I am hungry, so I'm going to eat to nourish my body, and then eat the food. I feel tired, so I'm going to sleep to rejuvenate my body and go to sleep. I'm going to walk outside to get into the sunlight and go walk. I'm going to go work out to strengthen my body. Go work out. I'm going to go over to my friend's house to have a loving connection and to be of service. Go to your friend's house. See, it's the nature of a mistake to be corrected when the mistake is recognized. And so you just have to do everything intentionally, and you will start recognizing those mistakes, those unconscious habits and patterns. And then the old patterns quickly lose energy because you're no longer feeding them with the unconscious behavior, and you're no longer desiring them. When you choose to do something and you know why you're doing it, that is the conscious use of the I am. Could it be any simpler, you guys? Thank goodness it's this simple, isn't it? What if you actually had to verbally speak a mantra to use the I am? What a bummer that would be. Everyone would think you were like a Looney Tune who's lost your mind. Everywhere you go, I am opening this door, you know. The I am is so close to you, there's no room to see it. You can only use it, you can only give it and extend it and activate it in your life. And when you know you're doing something with the intention to use it for awakening, for consciousness, for mindfulness, the ego can invest you with guilt or pride for any action, even in addiction to something. These energies, the door is closed on them. So when you practice acting with a loving intention, using everything to learn, to grow, to awaken, you are requalifying your actions into perfect alignment with the law of one.